the New York Knicks. And we wondered if you were going to label what kind of season they had. Did they have a successful season? Can you have a successful season and fire your coach? That would be my question. Because I would think a lot of Knicks fans would say we had a successful season. I mean, you had a chance to go to the NBA Finals, but you fired your coach. Successful? Now, we might look at this and say, Tom Thibodeau took them as far as he could take them, and they need to bring in somebody. Somebody who has experience, somebody who's won a title before, perhaps. Now, if you go back to when Michael Malone was fired by Denver, and I said on the show after he was fired, Tom Thibodeau has to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, it feels like. If not, then Michael Malone will be the next head coach of the Knicks. He's got a title in Denver. He got fired at the end of the season. His father was a Knicks assistant coach. He knows the landscape there. And, you know, Thibodeau was doing a great job. Now, did I think he was going to get fired? I didn't. And he did get to the Eastern Conference Finals. But all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you're going to fire him. Now, we might look at this in 3 years and say, you know what? That's a tough decision, but they made the right decision. There's a surprise, or maybe there's the element of shock, but I'm not surprised because nothing surprises me anymore, it feels like, in sports. It's like, okay. And this was one of those where I went, wow, okay. And I don't know if Michael Malone is going to be the number one candidate. I'm looking at the odds right now, and it's got Michael Malone as your favorite, a big favorite, and then it's Johnny Bryant. I believe he's an assistant coach with Cleveland. Jay Wright, who retired from college basketball, and he's been in broadcasting. Mike Budenholzer, who's always available. Rick Brunson. Okay. Have father-son combination there. Monty Williams, Taylor Jenkins, John Calipari, Danny Hurley, Jeff Van Gundy. Those are just some of the names. Now, the odds are long with a lot of those. It feels like Michael Malone is he's the number one candidate by far. I don't think you fire somebody without knowing who you're going to hire. I've always felt that. Do I think the Knicks would make this kind of decision? And I thought maybe that Tom Thibodeau, you know, everybody was pointing their fingers at Karl Anthony Towns. He was getting the blame. They weren't going to, I guess, focus in on Tom Thibodeau. It seemed like, okay, survive this. You're not firing Karl Anthony Towns. And then all of a sudden it's like, boom. Now, people get caught up in who pulled the trigger. Does that matter? Leon Rose is basically, he's running the team. He's your president of basketball operations or whatever. I'd call it a GM. But he's a former agent, and Tom Thibodeau was his, one of his clients. They just signed Tom Thibodeau to an extension, like a $30 million extension last July. Okay. Are you going to make these moves? You trade away Randall and DiVincenzo. You get Karl Anthony Towns. Okay, you got Mikal Bridges. Like, okay, here's our lineup. And then you get to the Eastern Conference Finals, and you'd say, all right, that's pretty good. Now, Karl Anthony Towns didn't play defense. People are surprised. You got a head coach who's a defensive-minded guy. Jalen Brunson's not a good defensive player. It feels like they might have overachieved a little bit here. But I don't know if ownership said, the Celtics weren't there. Cavaliers weren't there. We should have beaten the Pacers. We had home court advantage. We should be playing in the NBA Finals. We don't have depth here. We use our starters too much. And then all of a sudden, Thibodeau started using his bench a little bit more in the series. And I don't know what the tipping point was. I don't know if that's one of those irrational moments where the owner goes, fire him. Wait, we just gave him a $30 million extension. I don't care, fire him. And then your agent, who's now your boss, is the one who's firing you. But then he helped sign you to a $30 million. And you're on the hook to pay Tom Thibodeau all of that money. I mean, you feel like you've graduated from the old way of doing business with the New York Knicks. Like, Okay, now they're respectable. It's a good team. You got a respected coach, front office, owner seems to be out of the way. Former Knicks are now allowed back in the building. Okay, we're moving forward here. And then all of a sudden it's like, put on the brakes. I'll take you back to after the loss, Game 6. Jalen Brunson was asked this question.
Jalen, when you talk about the confidence, obviously, I feel like nobody takes more criticism than Tom. And this team obviously has turned around during his tenure. Do you kind of feel that going forward he's the same guy to lift you guys the rest of the way, that next level?
Is that a real question right now? You just asked me if I believe that if he's the right guy. Yes.
Thanks, guys.
Come on.
And, I agreed with what Brunson was saying. Whether you feel otherwise, what are you going to say in that moment? Now, I would have said, why do you think he is still the right guy? I want Brunson to tick off things that Thibodeau does. If I'm a reporter, I would say, why do you think he is still the guy to lead the Knicks? And then you could get Brunson to tell us what he sees with his head coach. But once again, we might look back on 2 years, 3 years and go, that was a smart decision. I mean, I'll go back to when Doug Collins got fired in Chicago. Extremely popular. They brought in an unknown as far as coaching, Phil Jackson, who had coached in the CBA. And then people were like, Phil Jackson. And then Phil Jackson came in, and the rest is history. We've seen where, teams make a drastic move. Go back to Alex Smith when he was the quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. And all of a sudden, you're going to go up in the draft to get Patrick Mahomes. And we went, why do you need Patrick Mahomes, Alex Smith? They realized they could only get to a certain level. And now you look at that move as one of the great draft picks in the history of the NFL. A draft pick that changed the NFL. But you had to make, a gut move. And they've had bad coaching hires in New York. They've had bad rosters. I mean, the one constant has been the ownership there. But it feels like they moved past that finally. And then this one feels like oh boy, is this the same old Knicks here? Yeah, Marvin.
Another one from a coaching standpoint, when the Buccaneers got rid of Tony Dungy and got John Gruden, they were on the cusp so many times going to conference championship games, and they needed somebody to take them over the hump.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you make these moves and they work out, and then we applaud you, and then other times you make a move. And, I mean, look at the 49ers with Trey Lance. Like, hey, this is our quarterback. We're all in on this guy. We're going up to get him. This guy's going to be the difference. We're going to win a Super Bowl. We're going back to the Super Bowl. And then all of a sudden it's like Trey Lance can't play. And then you get Brock Purdy. And that saved jobs there. But you made a decision, and it could have cost you your job, and then you end up drafting Brock Purdy with the last pick. Like, strange how these things work out. This guy was replaced. This guy, took us to a championship. This guy can only get us so far, whether it's a player or a coach. But with Tom Thibodeau, I mean, we've seen him in Chicago. We've seen him in Minnesota. We saw him in New York. He's a respected coach. And maybe this is, given his system, given the players he has, this is as far as he's going to go. I would say, though, whoever coaches the Knicks, I'd get a little more depth. And I would get somebody who might be able to make up for Karl Anthony Towns' lack of defense. I can't blame Tom Thibodeau for Karl Anthony Towns not being able to play defense. When teams are singling you out, they're just running pick and rolls. I mean, there's nothing you can do. Karl Anthony Towns had one block shot in an entire series. He's 7 feet tall. He had one block shot. Yes, Heaton.
Yeah, is that block shot thing more just about effort?
It could be position, but I would say, can't you accident? I mean, I got Brunson who has more block shots. I would say effort, positioning, maybe wanting to be in a situation where you want to block a shot. But That is kind of surprising. Yeah, Paulie.
Do you guys find yourselves torn with this one? Because the Knicks' history suggests most of their moves don't work out, while also respecting the ownership for trying something and eating $30 million to try to get that one title. It's very hard where to go on this one.
Okay, I like Tom Thibodeau. I don't think he is an elite coach. I think he's a very good coach. But, I mean, I've seen what's happened in Boston. I don't think they have an elite coach. But they end up winning, or they've won a championship. Like, it's weird. Michael Malone is a very good coach. He got fired by Denver. There are times when you go, George Karl, I think, got fired after he was coach of the year. He got fired after winning coach of the year. Yes, Seton.
Yeah, I feel like the one thing you can't criticize the Knicks for is not trying. Over the last 25 years, they've tried. They've thrown everything against the wall to see if it would stick. Yeah. Everything. Yeah. This is, to me, that's actually the problem, is that they don't stick to anything.
Well, whoever comes in, how high is that bar? How long do you get in that job if you don't win a championship? Or at least get to the NBA championship? Right? Because Thibodeau got you to the Eastern Conference Finals. That next coach who comes in, we expect this. And it can't be, there's this grace period where you go, we got a 2-year plan. No. I would expect you to get to the NBA final, at least to the Eastern Conference Finals. And we don't know. If I look at the East right now, Indiana's still going to be Indiana next year. I don't know what you're going to have with the Bucks, with Giannis, or Philadelphia with the 76ers, Jason Tatum in Boston. I still think Orlando is a quality team. Cleveland is going to have their core four unless they make a move. I mean, the East is open-ish to, okay, we got two teams we got to worry about. We got to worry about the Pacers, and we have to worry about the Cavs. Because I think the Celtics are going to look a little different, and you're probably not going to have Jason Tatum for most of the year. This is the window of opportunity. If you're going to try to get back and at least compete for a title, okay. But you got 2 years, it feels like, before the vultures start to circle here. Yes, Marvin.
And I think Tibbs got fired because of two things. One, the game one loss when they were up by 14 with less than 3 minutes left, and you let that game slip from your fingers at home during the game one. And this was their year. Everyone was out. All you had to do was beat the Pacers, and it's a team that you thought you could beat.
Yeah.
You already beat the Celtics. Cleveland was out. Milwaukee's not in. All you got to do is beat the Pacers, who you guys match up well with and you guys were confident against. And you guys lose that, so I'm sure that had to be the breaking point for the ownership.
Yeah, but part of the problem is people didn't watch the Pacers. And we looked at the Pacers and we go, the Pacers? And then you watch the Pacers and you go, oh, wow, they're pretty good. And I blame that on networks not really covering the other teams. I mean, even Scott Van Pelt said on his podcast, and, I'm paraphrasing, kind of like I'm embarrassed that I didn't realize how good the Pacers are. Because we get fed the same teams over and over and over, and nobody cared. People are going to come away from this with OKC and go, boy, they're really good. They've been really good all year long. And I think the perception was, you got to get past the Pacers. They're not any good. They play in Indiana. Like, wait a minute. Watch them play and tell me what your opinion is. Yes, Eden.
I think that's crazy. You weren't supposed to get past the Celtics. You weren't supposed to get that far at all. And now that you did, it's still not good enough. You're supposed to get past the team you met there. You weren't supposed to be there anyway. And it's not like this season you loaded up and it's like, we're all in this 1 year. This is the year we got to do it. Nobody thought that heading into the season, like, I could see the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals. That nobody saw that.
Well, the Cavs were injured, the Celtics were injured, and the door was wide open.
Right,
but you're right. I think getting this far made it harder to fire Thibodeau, because if things would have played out like we thought, he wouldn't have gotten this far. And it's almost like, damn, he got to the Eastern Conference Finals. Yeah, he's still not the right guy for us. So I think it might have made it tougher. I think that they thought about this for a while. I don't think this is one of those where ownership or management went, fire him. Wait, let's think about this. No, fire him. Yes, he.
And that's when they were like, no, you know what we'll do? This is how we get rid of him. Let's trade for Karl Anthony Towns. He's already gotten him fired once. That'll be how we get Tibbs out. Again, we'll get Karl Anthony Towns. We'll have him fired twice.
Yeah.
And then we're free.
Do you think that Tibbs wanted Karl Anthony Towns?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.